If you ask what the most important invention in human history was, many people would say agriculture, writing, electricity, or the internet. But if you push far enough back in time, roughly 1 to 1.7 million years ago, the answer may become much simpler: fire.
At that point, there were no cities, no states, not even what we would call history. There were only early humans struggling to survive inside a world they did not control. Fire was not something they created, it already existed in nature. The real question is this: why were humans the only ones who eventually turned fire into a technology? To understand why fire mattered so much, we first have to ask a more basic question. What exactly did early humans lack before they had fire?
What they lacked was not comfort. What they lacked was the ability to push beyond nature's limits. Once darkness fell, activity largely stopped. When the cold came, it had to be endured. Food was often eaten raw. And when predators approached, humans had little real control. At that stage, humans were nowhere near ruling the world. They were simply another part of the food chain.
That is why fire mattered, not because it was advanced, but because it addressed the most basic limits of survival: warmth, food, safety, and the night itself.
The technologies that change history are rarely the most complicated ones. They are usually the ones that first remove the deepest constraints. A tool transforms civilization, not because it sounds impressive, but because it pushes beyond the most fundamental boundary of its age.
But the question remains: other animals could see fire too. Why was it humans who crossed that threshold?
Because the human advantage was not simply strength. It was the ability to turn an accidental experience into a shared capacity. Animals fled from fire. Humans eventually observed it, imitated it, tested it, and tried to preserve it. And most importantly, humans could pass that knowledge on. The intelligence of a single individual does not change history. What changes history is whether a group can turn one experience into a stable practice. The first thing fire changed was food. Cooked food was safer and easier to digest. At first glance, that may seem like nothing more than a change in diet. But in fact, it marked something much bigger. For the first time, humans were using external energy to transform natural resources into something better suited to themselves.
And from that point on, the human attitude toward the world began to shift. Humans were no longer just accepting conditions, they were beginning to alter them.
Fire changed more than temperature. It changed time. Before fire, darkness meant retreat. After fire, the night became something that could be occupied, used, and organized.
Day belonged to action. Night began to belong to memory and narration. People gathered around the fire to speak, to watch, to imitate, to remember. Much of the earliest accumulation of knowledge may have taken place in exactly those moments.
Fire also changed space. It gave early humans a better chance against the cold, against predators, and against environments that had once been too harsh to endure. As a result, the range of human life began to expand. The significance of a technology often lies not in the object itself, but in the fact that it redefines where human beings are able to live.
That is why technological breakthroughs so often go hand in hand with migration, expansion, and entirely new ways of life. But perhaps the deepest significance of fire lies elsewhere. It changed not only the human relationship to nature, but the human relationship to other humans.
A fire that keeps burning is not just a source of heat. It is a resource that must be maintained. Who gathers fuel? Who keeps watch? Who protects the flame? Who carries it forward? The moment those questions appear, division of labor begins to appear with them.
And that means some of the earliest forms of social organization may not have begun with institutions at all. They may have begun with the shared maintenance of a vital resource. So let us push the question one step further. Why did fire become a turning point at that particular stage?
Because technologies do not change history in isolation. They matter when several conditions mature at once. In the case of fire, those conditions included observation, cooperation, and the ability to keep knowledge from collapsing back to zero. Fire mattered not only because it was powerful, but because humans had finally developed the capacity to receive it, preserve it, and build around it.
Seen this way, the meaning of fire goes far beyond warmth, light, or cooking.
It marks a decisive moment, the moment when humans first turned a force of nature into something that could be stored, used, and transmitted.
From then on, history was no longer only about the environment shaping humans.
It also became a story of humans shaping the environment in return. Stone tools, agriculture, writing, metal, printing, electricity, and today, even the internet and artificial intelligence all repeat the same deeper pattern. Fire did not simply ignite wood. It ignited humanity's first real form of agency.
And civilization perhaps began with that first circle of light,